Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to another exciting and informative video on our YouTube channel. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to thank you for watching. In this episode, we shall be diving deep into the cost of Brexit for the continent of Africa. We shall explore this from the strategic point of view and also from geopolitical and economic operation aspect. We would explore this like never before seen, so we encourage you to watch this video to the end for clarity and better understanding. We have made lots of videos on this particular channel. If you are new here, we encourage you to check the entire channel for you to see more exciting and educating content regards the global African perspective. Without any more delay, let's just dive straight into it. With Brexit, the United Kingdom will have free rein to set its own terms when dealing with countries in Africa. So far, the British government seems to be determined to foster close ties with the continent through foreign direct investment and private sector partnership. If you look at different aspects, with Brexit ratified, the United Kingdom would have to redefine its relationship with the continent of Africa and other African major countries. This adjustment is taking place amid economic recessions and increased competition and multipolarization around the world. In this context, adaptation and flexibility will play a crucial role in regards to these operations. One of the arguments in favor of Brexit was that the United Kingdom will be able to define its own terms of trade with third states once out of the customs union and single market. Until now, British trade with African countries was governed by European Union. Looking at different outdated framework with regards to this relationship with the continent of Africa. Drawing back to September of 2018, Jean-Claude Juncker proposed African countries a new partnership of equals, in quote for example, a continent-to-continent trade deal. While the implementation of such a broad framework remains unlikely in the near future, Europe and Africa are at the turning point in their relations. The Cotonou Agreement signed between the European Union and African countries, the Caribbean and Pacific states as of 2000, expired in February of 2020. The Treaty General Scheme preference in terms of the GSP was replaced by the Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPA. Under the GSP, African least developed countries were granted duty-free access to European markets. However, from 2007 onward, the European Union replaced this privilege arrangement with reciprocal agreement and planned to implement regulations at the regional level. At the moment, most of Africa's least developed countries are still granted duty-free access to European Union market. This mixed framework has become a source of tension between African countries rather than a drive of economic and trade integration. Moving forward, in the East African community, for example, whereas Kenya and Rwanda have called for the establishment of a partnership agreement with the European Union, Tanzania and Uganda firmly rejected such a possibility. During the transition period set to end, that was looking back at 2020, trade between the United Kingdom and African countries will remain regulated by the European Union General Preference Scheme based on that particular arrangement. However, if you sit back to look at the United Kingdom African Summit, which took place some couple of months ago, during the transition period, the United Kingdom priority will be to redefine trade terms and establish partnerships with the key powers like the United States, India, and China in extremely challenging global context. As the world faces economic and political consequences of the Great Confinement, but African countries are also likely to be part of the country's post-Brexit strategy. London has reaffirmed its commitment to strong ties with Africa over the past 2 years by setting ambiguous goals. Britain has contributed over 60 million to promote a strong and transparent African financial market, becoming the largest G7 investor in the continent by 2022 based on recent figures, investment partners of choice for the African countries. If you look at the relationship, the United Kingdom African Investment Summit that took place in 2020 provided important clues onto what the future relations could look like. 21 African countries took part in the summit. There were 16 heads of state in attendance, including Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Kenyan President then Uhuru Kenyatta, Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari, and the Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo. Deals worth more than $6 billion were announced the Department for International Development, the DEFDID, announced that 370 million British pounds worth of programs focused on developing green energy, digital technology, and basic trade infrastructures all were done. After exiting the European Union, Britain intended to go global, presenting itself as a champion of free trade with a no political integration strings attached. Despite the substantial economic effects of the coronavirus and the consequent change in focus and priorities, this strategy will likely resume in the medium to long term. In this context, the Commonwealth of Nations will likely become a key platform for Britain's trade, investment and cooperation strategy. The Commonwealth, which has 54 member states, includes developed economies like Canada and Australia, important emerging markets like India, Malaysia or Nigeria. With a population of 2.4 billion, the Commonwealth accounts for more than 17% of the global GDP based on purchasing power parity. As demonstrated by the United Kingdom African Summit, London is likely to actively support Africa's effort towards a continental trade facilitation and economic integration. In parallel, the 19 African Commonwealth countries will be privileged trade partners moving forward. The summit also suggested that Britain's relation with African countries will focus on the private sector, reducing aid dependency to trade. Investment and cooperation in the critical areas such as finance will be prioritized, a welcome development for an increasing number of African countries. As we move down to close this episode, this of course entails a major shift in patterns of British foreign direct investment in Africa, most directed towards the extractive sector. South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, the Commonwealth states and Egypt are the main trading partners. However, ties with fast-growing economies like Ethiopia, Ghana, Rwanda are intensifying. It is also noteworthy that the then Prime Minister Johnson affirms his commitment to putting people before passport, signifying that the country will welcome African talent with open hands. Looking at different aspects, the tough competition is out there. While the United Kingdom African trade has increased over the past 2 years, its volume remains modest, totaling just over 46 million pounds as of 2018 based on figures. For comparison, trade between African countries and China reached over 204 billion in the same period. In terms of investment between 2014 and 2018, the United Kingdom, the third largest investor on the continent by number of projects after the United States and France. However, with foreign direct investment volume, the picture is rather different. China occupies the first position with over 72 million US dollars, followed by France with over 34 million US dollars, with over 17.70 something million US dollars for the United Kingdom. At the 2018 Forum on China-African Cooperation, President Xi Jinping announced a 60 billion in loan, aid and investment initiative, most prioritizing connection and infrastructure under the Belt and Road Initiative. France remains Europe's largest exporter to Africa, although Germany seemed poised to overtake it. Furthermore, President Emmanuel Macron has been very vocal about leaving the past behind and reshaping his country's relationship with the continent of Africa. Germany, in turn, has announced a Marshall Plan in Africa, intended to foster development and contain migration flow. Russia, India, Japan, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates have also turned their attention to African countries. Moved by a combination of economic and security interests, the continent is becoming a new era of global competition. As we look at this particular episode, the United Kingdom will not have an easy time keeping up with so many foreign initiatives in Africa, but some factors will give it an advantage. While some progress is expected in the US-African relations under the Prospect African Initiative, Washington does not seem willing to endorse the African Continental Free Trade Area through a continental approach to trade. Recent attempts to establish bilateral free trade deals with Kenya have generated tension in East African community, and other countries see it as a potential violation of regional and continental protocol. The general scenario is that, in the short to medium term, relations between Britain and Africa will go through a challenging, time-consuming process of adaptation, which may adversely impact some African economies. The nature of this transition period will determine the long-term scenario. Unlike China, the European Union, or Germany, broad strategies, those partnerships will be more flexible and focused, leading to a diversification of United Kingdom investment in the region. As such, it will answer the need of African countries like Rwanda, Ghana, or Ethiopia, which aim to move away from aid dependency and become developed economies. Some African LDC outside the Commonwealth, however, could find themselves negatively impacted by Brexit as the European Union struggles to increase or even to maintain its aid commitment. This middle-of-the-road scenario presupposes that, despite the global recession and China's continuous slowdown, the trend of the growth and diversification that has characterized the foreign direct investment flow into Africa in the last 2 years will resume, reflecting higher returns rates and advantages in the region. By opting for a duty and quota-free agreement with African least developed countries, Britain will favor the latter and become more attractive than the European Union. But with choices would affect African continental free trade. More developed countries like South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, or Tanzania could oppose such turn of event. Uncertainty and delays under worst-case scenario could have severe damages for key industries in certain countries. For example, the automotive sector in South Africa, or agriculture and floriculture in Kenya, since the United Kingdom market represents a significant share of those countries' total export to the European Union. Hopefully we've informed you with regards to the impact with regards to the cost of Brexit for the continent of Africa. Let us know what you think with regards to this relationship with regards to Brexit, if Britain does business with your country, and we would like to hear from you. If you are new to this channel, we will looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.